Lieutenant Commander Murray here from Naval Talent Acquisition Group in Portland. He's here to talk to us today about NROTC scholarships with the Navy.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. And any virtual audience that was on this commentary. For those of you with me in the room, you guys are one of our priority. If at any point in this conversation if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll take it one step at a time. A lot of this information is really new to people, so I don't want you to be stuck with any question, and then 20 minutes later, they're really cool. Come forward with that. Thank you, sir. Yeah. So as introduced, my name is Lieutenant Murray. I went for Naval Academy. I reported in 2016, did 4 years there, graduated in 2020. As a newly commissioned ensign, I was a naval flight officer. For those of you who have seen Top Gun, that's Goose, the original, or Bob, the new one. They're backseaters of naval aircraft. They control radar, weapon systems, communications. Qualified through flight school, selected for JETS, which was the Marine for a really long time. Did centrifuge training in San Antonio, did low-level strike, did all-weather intercept, did basic fighter maneuvering. I lost consciousness in the cockpit a few too many times. So now I do more administrative work for the Navy. Specifically, I'm the operations officer of a recruiting district. Covers Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, and Northern California. As part of that, I worked in officer programs, specifically getting college graduates into officer positions in the Navy. I've worked in NROTC scholarship administration for the whole district. And more recently, I run all-enlisted programs, and generally ops for the command. So anything anyone could want to do in the Navy, from going straight out of high school to being a CB, like a construction electrician or heavy equipment operator, up to someone who's done a whole career in the civilian world and decides, I want to be a Navy chaplain or a Navy doctor. All of those folks, I've helped people at every end of that spectrum and still do. So any question you have, I can not answer it, definitely put you in touch with the person who very immediately would set you on whatever path you're looking to go down. Introductions aside, any Navy PowerPoint you're going to see is going to go over what our objectives today, and ours are pretty simple. I'm going to talk about what college scholarships are out there for the armed services. We're going to define officer in context because a lot of these scholarships are relevant to how you would commission, how do you get stripes on your sleeves like I have. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what are the benefits of some of these scholarships if you would choose to pursue them. It includes the Naval Academy. For those of you who don't know, the service academies are fully funded by the U.S. government. You choose to attend there. It's full ride, no matter what. Okay, so why do we offer scholarships? There's this quote that's up there on the board that is, it is by no means enough that an officer in the Navy should be a capable mariner, good at driving boats. He should be that, of course, but also a great deal more. He should be a gentleman of liberal education, refined manners, place courtesy, and makes a sense of personal honor. He should keep constantly performing the great truth that to be well obeyed, one must be perfectly esteemed. The idea is that the Navy is going to be your route to higher education. We care more about what's up here than we do what's over here. There is a lot that goes into putting nuclear-powered aircraft carriers to sea, putting nuclear submarines underway underwater, and landing hundreds of aircraft every day on and off the flight deck. We're looking for really, really smart people. So when we talk about college scholarships in the military, it's because we need really intelligent, skilled talent for any position that we're going to be having applicants apply to. Going on, what are the service academies? For anyone who's not familiar with them, we've got the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, West Point. There's also the Coast Guard Academy, though it's much smaller. And then the last oddball is the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Merchant Marine Academy, they're not an armed military service, but again, also a lot smaller. So I will say they fall beyond the scope of this presentation. If you have questions about them, I'm happy to address them. But these are the big three. But what do they do? So they're four-year accredited institutions. They commission you as an officer. And then throwing this phrase officer around a lot in the presentation so far. Does anyone know what an officer in the military is? Go for it. Any idea?
So what I've been told of an officer is it's the reserved people who go in and work and do. They don't typically fully work on the things, but they do oversee what they're working on and all of that.
Okay, that's a fair statement and gets at the edges of it. I'm going to start with the most basics. There's an enlisted rank structure and there's an officer rank structure. The difference is that when you enlist in the Navy or any of the services, you're given a very specific job. Think sonar technician, think hospital corpsman, think equipment operator, the ones who drive bulldozers for our construction battalions. And you're going to become the absolute best in the world at doing that thing. Your advancement is going to be tied to how well do I do my task, if you're a missile technician, get missiles ready to fire on a destroyer, and lead others, train others, get them to do that task efficiently. Me as an officer in the Navy, I'm tied to a broader community. I started out in naval aviation. So instead of becoming a subject matter expert on this one missile system and how it is launched from a destroyer, I have to know naval aviation more broadly, and be willing, and be, not be willing, but be able to effectively manage and lead enlisted sailors to make sure all of those other tasks that go into getting an F-18 off the flight deck are going according to schedule. This means I have to move around more often. In general, enlisted sailors in the Navy will stay in a place for about 5 years. Officers bounce around every 3 years. And it also means that I'm going to have to do a whole lot of diverse jobs in the military, but the general expectations I'm always working for is getting command of the military unit. So a little bit different there. Another thing people like to point out is that officers are required to have a bachelor's degree. And enlisted sailors have access to a lot of education benefits, and to promote in rank, it's expected that you take advantage of those benefits and get education. It's rare that someone makes chief petty officer without already having a college degree or a master's degree. By the time you get up to senior chief petty officer, almost all of my senior chiefs have earned a master's degree through their time in the Navy. But over in the officer route, it starts with education. And that's why I was talking about the service academies and those college scholarships that will pay for it off the bat. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone tracking? Okay. Moving on. Let's dive into that a little bit more. So I said, officers, instead of having over 70 ratings, 70 different listed specialty jobs you can do, we have fewer warfare communities. You want to take a guess from me about which any one of these are? There are 4 of our big ones, the 4 main ones that people would commission into if they go to the Naval Academy, for example.
The one on the far right is Navy SEALs.
Yeah, so that's SEALs. Navy Special Warfare, but specifically the Navy SEALs. That is one officer community that can commission into out of the Naval Academy. They're a small one. Each year they take between 30 and 50 of the graduating class of about 1,000. But it's still a rate of 3 to 5% of each of the graduating from the Naval Academy will go into Navy Special Warfare. The percentage for ROTC is almost the same. It's usually just a little bit lower for a greater population of the lower percentage. Okay, the other 3 are a little bit harder. Can anyone else tackle another one of them? Go for it.
SWOs.
I'm impressed. SWO. So SWO stands for Surface Warfare Officer. A lot of people, when they picture an officer in the Navy, it's by no means enough they're a capable mariner, good at driving boats. They think of, oh, you drive boats around, but they don't know the name for it. So Surface Warfare Officer, yes, their whole big deal when they first become a SWO is how do I become qualified as officer of the deck? How do I prove to my country that I can be trusted with a warship in foreign waters while the captain is asleep in bed? That's a big deal. That is one of the officer communities. We've got 2 left. One is really hard. I would think one's a little bit easier.
The third one has something to do with submarines.
I'm impressed. I thought you were going to go with the second one. But okay, the third one, yes, that's a submarine warfare officer. All of our submarines in the Navy are nuclear powered. We have fast attack submarines. Those are hunter-killers. It's good that most people don't know what submarines do, but every single day our submarines are out there actively pursuing enemy submarines around the world. We play hide and seek all day long. We need to know where all of the other submarines in the world are at any given time, so that if we were to go to warfare, we're already in a position of, let's say, strategic dominance. But to be a submarine warfare officer, you have to go to Naval Nuclear Power School in Charleston, South Carolina. Fast Attack submarine only has 138 souls on board. It's not a lot of people to keep a nuclear power plant operating 24 hours a day, and to keep everyone clothed and fed, and to follow that hunter-killer mission. So everyone, one, no matter where you go in the Navy, is a qualified damage control and a qualified firefighter, but also in the nuclear submarine officer community, you're going to be an effective nuclear engineer. Got one left. Wings of gold. Aviation. That divides into Navy pilot, which is shown above, and Naval flight officer, which I spent 3 years training as. They fly planes and they lead aviation squadrons. Kind of the simplest of bunch. We'll pause for a second here now that we've covered all of them. These are the blurbs that are taken straight from the Naval Academy website. Make sure this presentation gets to you all after the fact. But this is essentially just, in a nutshell, what each can do. Small text, a lot, hard to read, understand. But we've kind of covered it, just discussing them so far. Moving on, if you're wondering what the U.S. Naval Academy is, we have access to water because we're training you how to use boats. It's in Annapolis, Maryland. It's a beautiful little town on the Chesapeake. spent 4 years here. Fun fact, Bancroft Hall, the dormitory there, is the largest dormitory in the world. All 4,400 midshipmen share one dorm. When you're on the night watch from midnight to 2 a.m. roving, those halls cover 6 miles. So it's a 6-mile walk to cover every inch of hallway in the 2 hours that you're on watch. Just one fun fact that this is the Naval Academy. Any questions about the Naval Academy? Typically, or we can talk about it a little bit now before we go on. In general, what you can major in, where it is, what it stands for. Okay, great, we'll move on. U.S. Military Academy at West Point is up on the Hudson River in New York. The nearest town is called Highland Falls. It's a little bit more remote, but it's also a really beautiful place. Naval Academy commissions you as an officer in the Navy. West Point commissions you as an officer in the Army. It's our oldest service academy, and like both the Naval Academy and the Air Force Academy, it's a really great mission school. Lastly, the U.S. Air Force Academy is the closest to where we are right now in Oregon. This is in Colorado Springs, Colorado, a little south of Denver. Beautiful campus. I've only visited there once, but commissions you as an officer in the Air Force. Applying to the service academies. These are some steps you'll see on any of the service academy websites. When confirming your eligibility, you fill your application, which really describes how in point one were you eligible to be considered in the first place. You'll apply for your congressional nomination. The deadline's in Oregon, but also pretty universally around the country. If you're thinking about applying to a service academy, you need to let your congressman know by November 1st. Because to attend one of these service academies, a member of Congress, whether it's a senator or a representative, has to give you their stamp of approval. It's nothing crazy. You don't have to know them personally, but they want to see your application to the academy so they know what they're signing off on. Just think of it as one more college application to do. After that, you'll do your college entrance exams, you'll submit your transcripts. There's a medical examination that comes late in the game, often after you've already been accepted. It's just a check of, hey, are you going to be eligible for at least most of the officer communities. Finally, candidate fitness assessment. This can be knocked out anywhere along the way. You do have to complete it before you can be accepted into the academies. A lot of people have this image of any midshipman or cadet going to a service academy as being this crazy, fit, varsity athlete. As I mentioned before, we're more interested in the one up here. So think of this as something that could disqualify you, but being able to run the fastest mile or do the most push-ups does not necessarily make you the most qualified candidate. We want to make sure you can run a mile, but this isn't going to be a limiting factor for most applicants. And lastly, you have to interview with an officer. Usually a blue and gold officer. They're, for the most part, folks that have served as officers in the military now volunteer their time. A lot of times they're academy alumni. They just do that gut check with you if you know what you're doing. Eligibility requirements, these are pretty basic. You have to be at least 17 years old. You can't have any dependents, you can't have a kid. We want you to be all in on your time at the academy. I like to tell people there are very few times in your life where you get to be an absolute disciple of something. I don't mean that in any sort of religious context. It's the idea that when you show up to a service academy, you show up with the clothes on your back and the paperwork that they're expecting from you, your birth certificate, your social security card. But they feed you, they clothe you, they bring you everything so you can just focus on getting the most that you possibly can out of the school and out of the training. That's why you can't come with a kid. Because I've got nothing against working parents. It's just that we want you to be all in on this one thing right there. Don't know if that was by but one of the limiting factors for some folks. Lastly, having a valid social security number is one way of backing up U.S. citizenship. And then the medical evaluation. As I said earlier, you may already be accepted into the Naval Academy, saying, hey, we want you as a student. Now we're going to schedule a medical evaluation for you and make sure that it makes sense. So people talk about the puzzle pieces that go into an acceptance. Be accepted by the school, by the academy. Be nominated by a member of Congress because that's required by law. And then passing the medical evaluation. You need all three, but each one is often happening on a rolling admissions basis. They could go in any order. If that makes sense. Moving on, if anyone is trying to obtain a congressional nomination, we've already passed the November 1st deadline for seniors for this year. You can also always apply after you've done a year of college somewhere else and you decide to go back and start over at the Naval Academy. You just go to that member of Congress's website. Under services, you'll find over here, Academy nominations. Pretty easy to find for any member of Congress. If anyone's, what year is it? the room. How many seniors do we have?
Juniors.
Hands? Perfect. Juniors, if you're interested in going to a service academy next year or enlisting in the military after that, one great way to get more information about these classes is attending one of the summer programs. Picture up here is from the summer leadership experience at West Point. I did summer leadership experience at West Point. I also did summer seminar at the Naval Academy. Each one is designed just to be a week in the life, so that you know what you're getting into and that you have all the resources you can need to complete the application once your senior year is up. It's not too late. You can still apply to summer leadership experience at West Point or the summer seminars at the Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy. On top of that, there are a lot of scholarships that are available. The Naval Academy will pay to fly you from Oregon to Annapolis or from Oregon over to West Point so that you can get that experience and decide whether or not you want to apply. It's a great opportunity. Really encourage you to take advantage of it. I mentioned earlier the candidate fitness assessment. This is disproportionately asked about when I give these presentations. Everyone's worried about the fitness assessment and whether or not they'll pass it, so I like to take some time to cover it here. Even though, as I said before, it's not a big factor in most folks' application. It's not going to put you over the top and be that defining thing that the academy decides, well, their grades are marginal, but boy, they can do a lot of push-ups if they want them. More often, it's if you really can't run a mile, it's probably going to be an issue with you being an officer in the military. If you can run a mile and do a few pull-ups, you're going to be okay. All of the events are listed up here. Another one that folks tend to have a lot of questions about is what is the basketball throw? What does that mean? You kneel on the baseline of the basketball court, you throw a basketball as far as you can. It's meant to test general athleticism and a little bit of mobility and flexibility. Someone who can put themselves in an awkward position that you don't normally use a lot and throw a basketball really far usually has the spatial awareness and athleticism to do well on, say, an obstacle course. You'll see some people that, you see them in gym class trying to sport. There are people who take to it like a fish to water. There are people who don't. That's a little bit of what that's trying to test, but again, don't worry about it. Yes, you two have already tried that.
Yeah.
So that's been so long.
I was going to the summer seminar this summer, and I was preparing for the CFA, and he helped me do it.
Yeah.
And it was just fun.
Yeah.
I spent an entire class period doing it.
Throwing basketballs in the gym. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny. It's
Trying
an
to beat
awkward
each other.
movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now, moving on to ROTC. So there are 3 ways to become an officer in the military. One is you go to one of the service academies. It's the oldest way. The second is you go to the Reserve Officer Training Corps. The idea behind this is the Naval Academy is just one school. It can't produce all of the officers that we need for the fleet. On top of that, it's a good engineering skill, but there are other skills that we'd like you to major in, other fields of study that are very relevant, that there are universities all over the country that teach these things very, very well. Nearest one to us is Oregon State. Oregon State does a great job of training nuclear engineers who make great submarine warfare officers. So it makes sense for us to try and build a mini naval academy at Oregon State. And so that's what the ROTC unit is there. A typical ROTC unit has anywhere from 10 to 50 students in a class, or a total of 40 to 200 students overall. And these students are going to normal college classes, taking a few extra classes that we would take at the Naval Academy, like seamanship and navigation, ethics and philosophy, law for the junior officer that we think develop you as an officer. But they just graduate from Oregon State. I can sum this up in a nutshell for you. Both of them get you to the same place. When I was in flight school, I had tons of friends who came out of the academy with me. I had tons of friends that came out of ROTC, and plenty from the third source that I'll talk about momentarily. But the big difference comes in. When I was at the Naval Academy, I had weekend liberty from noon to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Otherwise, I was behind the walls. If you want to take someone on a date on a weeknight, it's ground floor of the library. It's the go-to place to be. Or break into the planetarium and put a movie on the screen and try not to get caught. If you want to go on a date at Oregon State, you're a normal college student most of the time. You get to go do that. So that's something to bear in mind when people talk about college experience. It's a real factor. Some people love that idea of the way the Naval Academy gives you an opportunity to be a disciple or something, to go 100% all in on becoming the best version of an officer that you can be. It's not to say that the academy produces better officers, but it allows you that opportunity to fully focus. Some people need that coming out of high school. I became a better student in college than I was in high school. Part because I had a rigorous chain of command and making sure I adhere to everything I needed to be successful. At Oregon State or any other ROTC program, you're going to have a lot more leash, as they say. For some people, this is really good. They're really good at managing themselves effectively. For others, words, consider the academy. We all understand each other here? Okay, I won't belabor that anymore. Lastly, I don't have a slide for it. The final way if you're interested in becoming an officer is called Officer Candidate School. If you have already gotten yourself through college and you decide, hey, it's not too late, I studied aerospace engineering, I think I want to go to Top Gun someday. You can apply to a recruiting district that used to run officer programs for hours for the Navy to pick you up. What you're missing out on is the academy or ROTC paying for all of your college, but we recognize that you did that yourself. You got yourself through college. We'll still give you the chance to go to Officer Candidate School for 14 weeks, get a crash course in all of those topics that we think are foundational to becoming an officer, and then we'll commission you and send you out to the fleet. So there's always that last option. The other thing that's notable about that, for the Navy specifically, we care a lot about our main warfare areas. At the end of the day, we live to put ships to sea, put submarines beneath it, put planes up in the air. ROTC and the Naval Academy are going to drive you almost exclusively to those 4 warfare areas that I put up earlier in the presentation. If instead you want to become something really niche, like we have chaplains, we have radiation health officer, maybe even hires entomologists. I don't know what entomologists is. And study insects, because we don't want pests and parasites on board Navy ships. And they're officers in the Navy, and they have higher level education. But we don't teach entomology in the Naval Academy. We go out and search for those people, a dozen at a time every year, and we send them to Officer Candidate School. There are opportunities in the Navy besides these. Please.
So I'm 2 years from retirement, 55-year-old teacher. Can I go to OCS and become a teacher in the Navy?
You cannot become a teacher in the Navy. At 55 years old, you'd be eligible to be a chaplain.
Okay.
If you have a master's degree in theology and ecclesiastical understanding. And we can do that up until age 58.
Okay.
So that's a fun question now. All right, that was a lot about the service academies and ROTC. Any questions right off the bat?
I forgot, what exactly does ROTC cover?
It depends on what school you're going to. No matter what, it's going to cover full tuition if you are accepted for the ROTC scholarship. Different schools around the country that have historic ROTC programs that really value an ROTC unit on campus will also cover things like books and meals or housing. That's going to depend on the school. So if you're applying to ROTC, look up the specific programs. The National ROTC website does a good job of breaking a lot of this down and showing that. I can give you the example of Notre Dame will cover your housing and will cover your books and will cover your food. Effectively a full ride. Whereas there are other schools where they're paying your tuition, but everything else is on you. So, ROTC also gives you a stipend. You make 1/3 of ensign's pay. Ensign is the first rank in the Navy, so it's just 1 bar here. You get a little bit of pocket change, it ends up being about $1,000 a month, just to go to school.
To kind of build off what you were saying, if you're interested in the colleges and the ROTC program, you can do transfer programs through a different school in the area. How does funding work?
Okay, so we call it cross-town enrollment. When you look up ROTC programs, if you're able to do cross-town, it's still going to be listed as an ROTC school. A good example of this.
Western Western University is the only university for JROTC.
For JROTC or
ROTC.
okay, I'm not familiar with that one. It should be because they're a local school. I will say that up in Portland, I know the Army has an ROTC unit at University of Portland, and students at what's the largest university in downtown Portland? PSU, Portland State. Students at Portland State can go to University of Portland for Army ROTC. It's usually when they're right next to each other. Sometimes they'll be as far as about 50 miles away, but if Oregon State, for example, I don't know, you could be right, but
It's in Airforce One.
okay. There are limited opportunities to do a cross-town one.
What school are you looking at, Garrett?
Point Loma Nazarene University, and then San Diego State University has ROTC. Point Loma doesn't. My mom went there. My mom's friend in college did ROTC through San Diego State, and I was just wondering how the funds would, like, if I get money off at Point Loma doing it through a different school, or how that would work.
That makes sense, right? Yes, you should. And when you go onto the National ROTC website, it's going to break down every school. Again, those cross-town partners are going to have the same information. I would expect that you're going to be, if you're you're on the ROTC scholarship, getting full tuition, but San Diego State and Point Loma might have those different deals regarding postal housing. Another thing that I'll point out is if you want to do ROTC, if you're not accepted for the scholarship this year, it is possible to be on what they call a college program. It's a colloquial term. You won't find that like written down in the textbooks or in the Navy references, I should say. What this means is you're voluntarily doing the extra classes, going to work out with them in the morning, doing everything to be a midshipman of the ROTC unit, in the hopes that they'll give you a recommendation to be picked up for the scholarship after a year or after 2 years. But after 2 years, you're out of luck. So it's a last option if you don't get accepted to ROTC this year. If you're applying to the ROTC scholarship, if you apply early, before December 1st, automatically, whatever state you're in, so all of you living in Oregon, fall within the recruiting district called Navy Talent Acquisition Group Portland, we see your application. If we think you're an outstanding applicant, we can reserve a scholarship for you. The reason the Navy does this is it drives us as a recruiting district to go out and promote ROTC and hand out big checks, get everyone excited about it. But we say that for really, really high caliber applicants, and it goes early because of scholarship reservation. So it's an incentive that if you apply early, you get to compete against a really small pool that's local to you. After that December 1st deadline, we can't reserve anything for you anymore. You'll now be competing for the national scholarship. You can also still get picked up for the national scholarship early, long admissions basis, possible. I really lean on people apply early so that we have the chance to make your life easy and make your life simple. Just food for thought. ROTC is going to require you to apply to 5 schools that offer ROTC. The reason we do this is us accepting you for the scholarship does not mean that you're accepted to the college. In general, if we're accepting you for the scholarship, we think it's unlikely that